Hello, and welcome to my little video about great games you might not have played. Growing up back in the days, the Game Boys I've had were pretty much just a Pokemon machine. I didn't really start to play a lot of different Game Boy games until later when I started collecting for video games. And that's such a shame, because there are a ton of great games released for all the different Game Boy systems. And that brings us to the first game of my list, Dragon Ball Advance. This is based off the original Dragon Ball series, which already there is a very cool thing since most Dragon Ball games are based off the later series, Dragon Ball Z. And I've always had a soft spot for the original series. It's a simple side-scroller beat 'em up with enemies that looks like they belong in the Dragon Ball world, and it's just nice fun. It's a simple combat system, just bam bam bam. You can use your magic stick to expand and hit enemies, and later on you can learn the Kamehameha. And yeah, it's fun and simple, and there are a few cool elements as well. You can use your flying nimbus to beat up enemies in the clouds. It's not as much as shoot 'em up, more as a beat 'em up in the clouds, which is kind of weird. Outside of story mode, there's even an option of playing one-on-one fights against either the computer or friends using a link cable. Granted, the fighting is not amazing, it's alright, there are way worse fighting games on the Game Boy Advance. And you can unlock new characters, and playing with a friend you can have some good fun sucking at the game. And playing against the computer, you are most likely to get your ass kicked if you don't know what you're doing. Splatterhouse was originally an arcade game released back in 1988. It was infamous for its graphic and violent gameplay. However, in 2010, the series was rebooted, leaving mostly the side-scrolling action behind for a 3D beat-em-up hack-and-slash game. And when I say it mostly left behind the side-scrolling, it's because there are a few levels in the game that are made as an homage to the older games, recreating the side-scrolling elements. Combat in this game is very fun and very satisfying. It is, however, the thing you're doing most in this game, so it can get a bit repetitive over time. But still, it never gets too old to watch you rip your enemies into shreds or pummel them into the ground to a bloody pool. It's kinda like Stress Ball, the game, and doing it to a heavy metal soundtrack just makes it even more awesome. Another cool feature of the game is that you can unlock the full original arcade games. I remember back in the day playing this game with a few buddies and drinking some beer. When we realized we had unlocked the old arcade games, we pretty much played those for the rest of the night. They are really fun, still to this day. Good times, I tell you. Splatterhouse from 2010 is not a game that will change your life or anything, but it'll leave you with plenty of fun, blood and gore.
Come on, let's go kill something. It's been too long, and I'm way out of practice.
The Turok games on the N64 are classic first-person shooters that has left an imprint on many gamers. So of course there needed to be a new game released for the next generation of game consoles, and that's how we ended up with Turok Evolution. While it's not a bad game or anything, it just didn't live up to the expectations of the previous games. However, the Game Boy Advance version is pretty awesome. It clearly takes a lot of inspirations from the Metal Slug series, which is definitely not a bad thing if you're gonna get inspired by someone, get inspired by the best. And the running and gunning is therefore very fun in this game, but beware, this game will provide you with a challenge. It's not rip your hair out hard, and it does not feel like you are cheated when you die. When you die, it's your own fault, and you need to get better. You can also use a link cable to play co-op with a friend, and that's always fun. And it will also help making the game a bit more easier to go through. While the game does not have much originality, it does however borrow from the best. If you're a fan of the Metal Slug franchise or the Contra games, you'll probably have a real good time with this game also. Wild 9 is a weird game for the PS1. It even says it's on the box. Created by the same people who made the Earthworm Jim games, so you know you're in for a crazy time. The game itself does not tell you its story, for that you need the manual. It fills you in on the story as well as provides some useful instructions. You play as Wex Major, using a strange weapon called the Rig. The Rig lets out an energy beam that captures enemies and lets you slam them into the ground to kill them. And yes, it is immensely satisfying. You can also use the Rig to swing yourself around to elevate to higher points or to grab enemies to use them to help you get further in the game. It is easy to grab and kill an enemy. It is, however, much harder to grab the enemies and drag them to where you need to go. You end up banging them into everything and kill them before you could use them. And that is really my only gripe with this game, because it is really fun. You should really try this out, it's so unique. And that's a few great games you might not have played. While these are not the most obscure games in the world, they are definitely games I think a lot of people might have skipped. And that's a shame, for there are some fun games and they deserve a bit of attention even today. So, if you've been sticking through the bad English, you're a real hero. Thanks for watching and take care.
I'm blue, da ba dee da ba da dee da ba dee da ba da. Something, something, I'm blue, da ba dee da ba dee da ba da ba dee da ba da ba da.